conscious shift, a paradigm shift in how we see this country and its attitude towards people, towards humanity. So Imam Muhammad, his idea of bringing about this idea of American for good government is to bring about and to foster goodness for all of America. Thank you.
Peace be unto all of you. Assalamu alaikum.
This is a very serious program that we want to see improve the government and the citizens of the nation wherein we live. And I just want to say some things, and that is, as has been said already, there's only but one God. And regardless to how you relate to him by name, and some women are offended when we use the term him. In the Islamic religion, God has no gender. God is not male nor female. It's not black or white. And so I'm saying that so that hopefully you will be very, very comfortable. And what this effort is to recognize under the evil grip of slavery, that was a condition that we experienced that brought about the destruction of the African family. The father, the mothers couldn't stay married. You couldn't have children. So the traditions and the knowledge that our forefathers had could not be passed down, not only in paper, but it couldn't even be passed down by oral tradition. And so in that situation, here's a child is born. In many cases, his father was nowhere around. And that child, male or female child, was an empty vessel. And the minds that was in control at that time, they knew this, and they knew that the people are no stronger than their knowledge. And so the movement of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Imam Muhammad, and others outside of our association, they were trying to reinstill into the empty vessel the knowledge of their ancestors. And I want you to understand, we take the position that as the judge has said, the majority of the slaves were Muslim, the black Africans. They were Muslim. So I say that the majority of the Christians in the church were Muslims. They're in the church right now. And that when you buy a pair of shoes, you choose a pair of shoes. You have one or three different choices, right? But the majority of our people in the slave situation, we had no choice. And I want to say this, and what I'm going to give you is very serious information. You know, before they released our ancestors from slavery, they gave us the image of God that looked just like the slave master, such that when the chains were off of our hands and feet, we were still chained psychologically. And I'm appreciating Dr. Misbah and Dr. Iqbal, because in America, we have to have a serious research to discuss the effects of slavery. They still linger. And I'm talking about the effects of slavery on the African American, and also the effects of slavery on the Caucasian. Let me say this to you. If I'm the slave master and I'm holding Professor Knight down, right? I have to physically be there to hold him down. In my mind, I'm saying he's not going to make any progress because I'm holding him down. But I am punished because now I can't make no progress by holding him down. As he stays in one place, so do I. And most people who are in these situations, they don't realize the damage that is done to the psyche of the slave and the slave master. I'm hoping I'm making that a little clear for you. And this is why this is so important what they're doing. I don't know how much you really realize what you're doing, Dr. Misbah, you know. And Imam Muhammad told us that we African Americans will never be free until we can recognize the trouble in our subconscious mind. I'm talking about the blacks. So I'm going to say this, and like the rest, I'm going to sit down. You find it so easy for a black man to have sex with a black woman, but he won't stay there to take care of those children. And the African American woman has to understand why this man will not stay with her. And that is because during the times of slavery, the father could not stay with the mother. He was only used as a stud, if you understand what I'm saying. So dear listeners, this is in the collective subconscious mind of the majority of the African American males, okay? The sacred roles of father and mother, husband and wife was destroyed. So I just want to make a few points so that we can really get excited with this and demand that we have part 2. I'm putting a lot of wisdom out here, that you will drive this conversation. What we call 30 million African Americans, you would be surprised the percentage that are independent thinkers. And they're not independent thinkers, again, as I say, because of the effects of slavery. That which is lurking in the subconscious mind of our people. And what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Imam W.D. Muhammad, what they were doing was giving us this concept of self-creation. The German people, they create themselves. The Chinese people in America, they create themselves. They do not allow consciously another people to create their thinking. When you have a baby, if you're an adult, you name your baby. The neighbor does not name your baby. So the approach in the Islamic religion with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and with the Imam W.D. Muhammad was to use what Prophet Muhammad gave, and he said, create yourself with the attributes of God. You see, if you want to be a doctor, you have to create yourself with a medical book, right? You read the medical book, it creates you. You want to be a banker, you read the banking book, and it creates you as a banker. So, we were told by Muhammad the Prophet, do likewise. Create yourself with the image of God. And for the Christians, I want to put it to you this way, and I'll sit down. It says in the scripture that God, he said, let us make man in our image. That I see some of your lips going. In enlightenment, you know. That's beautiful teaching. But the African American on the whole didn't do that. And here's what I'm saying. If you have the same scripture, then why is your community different from the other people's community? If you have the same scripture, right? The Caucasians community, as they read the scripture, banks, development, right? The African Americans, as we read the same scripture, we don't have the same development. And you know why? It's because we didn't understand. Let us create man in our image. This is the Bible. I'm going to use the Bible. It doesn't mean image like you see it on the page. Image is an abbreviation. You know what it really means? Use your imagination. Image is the brief for the term imagination. So as God imaged the star before it was ever made, right? God had the image of the star in his mind, then he made the star. He had the image of the sun in his mind, then he made the sun. So likewise, every other ethnic group understood what I just told you, that they're to use their imagination when they don't have knowledge. And that imagination then will bring into the reality of the need that you have as a ethnic group, as a nation, or as a race. So I wanted to say that to you so that I can stimulate some hunger, because I want some more understanding of scripture, you know. And they know me, he knows me. I'm talking to my beautiful Christians. In the beginning, darkness was upon the face of the deep, and it was void and without form. And most of us, we think out here that it's the universe. It is the universe, but it's also talking about every human being. In the womb of the mother is total darkness. See, yeah. In the beginning, darkness upon the face of the deep, inside here. And it says that the Spirit of God moved on the surface of the water. What that means? That means the water bag break and the baby's coming. This is the better way to understand scripture. If we're going to be black Christians, we should understand it like this. Then God says what? Let there be light. So in the darkness of the womb of mother comes now the creature into the light. And then for Muslims it says Allah Khalqa Dhulumat ila Nur. And God is He who created from the darknesses, many darknesses, and leads into the one light. So I'm stimulating our hope, because I want to have some beautiful discussions, because they fired me up. That's why I'm talking so long. God forgive me. Assalamu alaikum.
Sorry. No, sir. But we can take that off. Okay. See, can you talk to it? Yeah, let me try. The green light. You have to hold it out. Yeah, it's on.
Hello?
Yeah.
Let's turn that one off.
Okay. Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll open it up for discussions or questions. You guys, you want to just raise your hand and I can bring you the mic. Anybody has a comment? Yeah, okay. Mohammed.
Thank you so much. I have a question for Judge Norman. Maybe you could ask whether there is a systematic work on the history of mosque making. You mentioned the Caribbean. I wonder how that story started and evolved in the United States, and maybe in the South. I don't know where it started, because I don't think I've seen any books on that.
So there is very little scholarship in terms of the history of mosque making in the Caribbean, but there's some scholarship coming out now out of the University of the West Indies. I can get you the information who the professors are who are working on that, but it's very interesting and important. It's interesting and important for a number of reasons, only because not only have Caribbean nationals impacted Islam in the Caribbean, right? They've also impacted Islam here in the United States, right? So Minister Louis Farrakhan is the child of Caribbean parents. His father is Jamaican, in fact. So one of the leaders. In addition to that, I know many of you here are probably Sunni, right? But in the Ahmadiyya community, many of there are many Ahmadiyya community members coming out of the Caribbean as well, in part because the Ahmadiyya community was one of the first areas of Islam that really focused on peoples in the Caribbean and peoples here in America, as blacks in America. Right. If that's helpful.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, my name is Haji Quadri Salvador. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. I've been married for 20 years now. This is my first time to at this podium. I'm very, very impressed. I don't want to say much, say we should do our best to carry along the youth in this program. There's a lot of FNU, a lot of them in FNU, a lot of them in FIU, etc., etc. We are getting old, and unless we pass this on to our youth, this program is 6 to a 60. There's an Africa program that says, whatever you do, take your kids and your family with you so you can become stronger and better. I wish you all best of the best. The next time I'm going to attend, inshallah, when you're doing this, try to do at least quarterly. I can do some good for all from Afro-America. May Allah bless us and accept the Ibadah. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Any comments or questions from the back? Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to share one thought that I kind of mentioned, but I didn't drive it home. The Nation of Islam and the revolution of our community was actually a testimony to the courage of the people, the dedication of the people, the wisdom of the leaders and the followers, and then the establishment of our firm faith. That's what we can look at from the migration of the revolution, from us going from the Nation of Islam to where we are now. Even when we were in the Nation of Islam, we had firm faith in whatever we were believing, whatever we espoused, we really believed it. And that was something that we didn't have prior to that. And even as a Christian, I kind of questioned some things because I had learned that monotheism existed in Christianity under the Pope Gregory, if I'm not mistaken. And I could not figure out how it became the Trinitarian doctrine later. When did that switch come about? Who brought it about? I don't know if it happened when John the Baptist split off from the Catholic Church. I don't know when it came about, but originally Christians practiced the belief in one God.
They're called Unitarian right to this day.
All right. Questions, comments?
Hello. Thank you for inviting me, Mr. It's been a delightful event. You referenced Sapelo Island. I'm from the Gullah community. I am Gullah. So with that in mind, we had to do a lot to bridge our native African heritage and our cultural frameworks, which we still do today, into the notion of Christianity. And we still have to do that in our churches today. If you've been there, you know what we do and what we don't do. I'm curious on how Islam played a role into my faith. And my faith is, as you always can tell, we bridge a lot with African traditions, eating and behavior with the notion of Christianity. So what role did Islam play in that? Thank you.
Thank you. Hello? Thank you. That's a great question. So Gomez, in his book Black Crescent, he does look at Georgia and the Carolinas, and he's looking for traces of Islamic pasts in Christian churches. Some academics would challenge his approach because sometimes a similarity doesn't amount to like the smoking gun evidence, right? So I can show you, a Muslim in a Buddhist majority area who decides to be vegetarian. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean they're reading Buddhist books, right? So, so much of it is speculative. Like there's certain like rice cakes that could come from a Muslim, like Ramadan iftar context. When I went to Sapelo Island, Cornelia Bailey, who's descended from Muhammad, she had a very positive relationship to that Muslim history, even though she's a Christian, and remarked that the church is facing a particular direction. There's a particular kind of etiquette about shoes. There's gender separation in some contexts. So there are these things that might jump out to someone who's familiar with Muslim context, and it may look like, oh, I can connect the dots to that. I'm always cautious when speaking outside of my own specialization on that, because so much of it is speculative. Right? But those arguments are absolutely okay. So. Thank you for that.
Yeah,